Swifter, your code skills are truly moving, but we'll learn how to use Swift to create an immovable TableView cell. Since we don't want our local weather cell to be moved or deleted, we'll learn how we can freeze this cell so that it will always remain in the top position in our list of locations, and also so another cell cannot move into its space. Now, this is identical behavior to Apple's own weather app, and we'll learn how to do this by learning how to use the TableView functions canMoveRowAt, canEditRowAt, and targetIndexPathForMoveFromRowAt. Let's get moving. Now let's polish up our app so it's ready to install on the device of a loved one. And in our location list view controller that displays the different locations for weather, let's get rid of the subtitle cell and go back to basic. We don't need the coordinates. We were just doing that to make sure that Google Place Autocomplete was giving us valid coordinates. It is. Our app is working fine. And we also want this first cell to always show the local weather. Now this means that the user shouldn't be able to delete this cell, they shouldn't be able to move this cell, and they shouldn't be able to move other cells on top of this cell. Now, how do we do that? Well, there are 3 more TableView functions that we've never used before. Now, this first one will prevent us from being able to move a row, and it's called canMoveRowAt. And this is called by iOS when it sets up each of these individual cells whenever the TableView is entering editing mode. And it takes a look to see if it can go ahead and show the little move control on the right-hand side. If false comes back for the index path it's checking, it won't display these 3 little lines that indicate it can be moved. canEditRowAt does the same thing, but it checks to see if a row can be edited. When we enter editing mode in iOS, iOS will check this function, it'll look at all of the different cells, and if we pass back false for indexPath.row equals 0, then it'll make sure that that particular row cannot be edited, and we won't see the option to delete in this row either. Now, to make sure that no rows are moved onto this first cell to displace it, we'll also call targetIndexPathForMoveFromRowAt. Now, we can return false if the proposed destination indexPath.row equals 0, and that proposed destination index path is a value that iOS passes in as part of this function being called. So here's the code that we'll write. We'll use the ternary operator to tighten up our code so that it takes up less space than it would if we did if-else. Let's code this up. Remember, the list of places is inside of our location list view controller, so we'll go into that file, and we'll add these right to the end of our TableView extension. And I'm going to put in a special comment in here, //mark, :dash, and then I'll say TableView methods to freeze the first cell. This will just put a callout mark in the jump bar so that it's easy for me to find these methods. Then our first function is canEditRowAt. I can see in code completion, it asks the data source to verify that a given row is editable. This is what I want. Press return. The next one is canMoveRowAt. Code completion says this asks the data source whether a given row can be moved to another location in the table view. Press return. That's exactly what we want. And this next one is targetIndexPathForMove. This is the function that we want. Asks the delegate to return a new index path to retarget a proposed move in a row. And it might not be entirely clear here, but what we're going to do is just pass back the source, which is where it's coming from, if we can't move to a particular destination. Now, what did that special mark comment do that I'd entered before? Well, if we go up to the jump bar, we can see that there's now a horizontal line just before this boldface comment that says TableView methods to freeze the first row, and we see the 3 methods that we wrote are right beneath this. Just makes things easy to find. And what's super nice about all these TableView methods is Apple handles all of the animations that go along with it. We just have to call them, and the code that we've written inside of this file, remember, it's the delegate of the TableView, will respond back to the TableView what it should do with a given cell. Now, the return statements we need are super easy, and 2 of them are identical. So in this first function, canEditRowAt, we're going to return, and this will be a ternary operator. So the first part is the condition that's either true or false. IndexPath.row not equal to 0. Then question mark. Now, the way this function works is if we return true, then that means that we can edit this row. So after the question mark, if it's true that the row does not equal 0, we'll return true. Otherwise, we'll put in a colon for the false condition and we'll return false. If you want, you can put parentheses around this statement to make it a little easier to read. Not necessary. Then I can highlight this entire return line, copy it with a Command-C, and paste it down below in canMoveRowAt, because I'm going to pass back the same result for canMoveRowAt, indicating that I cannot move indexPath.row equals 0. Now in this final function, I'm going to check proposed destination index path.row. So that's being passed in by this function that checks to see, can I move something onto the proposed destination index path? If it equals 0, equals 0, then question mark, I'm going to return the source index path. Now the source is where you're coming from. I'm returning it if it equals 0, essentially saying, no, you cannot take the cell and put it here, send it back to its source. Otherwise, I am going to use the proposed destination index path. It's totally cool to put the cell here. And notice we're returning the full index path that has .row as a property inside, so we're not adding .row to any of the returned values. Let's build and run. No errors. Hammer time. Moment of truth. Let's take a look at our individual locations. Click on the edit button. The table view will call the functions that we wrote. They'll check, can we edit a row? Can we move the row? Since that's not the case for indexPath.row equals 0, we don't see the delete cell indicator, we don't see the move cell indicator. What if we try to drag one of these rows on top of indexPath.row equals 0? Let's grab Beijing, see if we can put it up on top of Boston College. We can't. How come? Because the proposed destination index path.row equals 0 when we call targetIndexPathForMoveFromRowAt. Excellent work. Looking great. Remember, we also want to change the cell style from subtitle to basic, so return to Xcode, stop things from executing, get into the main storyboard, click on our cell, show the attributes inspector. Make sure that you're clicking on the right cell. My inspector pane is stretched out, so I'm just going to click on the side of the column and drag it to the right to resize it. I'll change the cell from subtitle to basic, then go ahead, build and run. And if we take a look, we're back to basics. Excellent job, Swifter. We just want to make sure that our About button works. We'll add an application icon too, and then we'll be done with WeatherGift. Keep at it.